I will ever volunteer for this stand. What would you do? Would you join the army or put your life on the line for your country, even though you...
لويزيانا، نيو اورلاند، اكو هنا معرض الحرب العالمية الثانية، واراويكم الطيارة من جوا لانه الطيارة كلش حلوة، الحجم كلش كبير مخيف. أنا دا أصور بالمتحف، وجدتي عروس تعطيك صور عرسها بمتحف الحرب العالمية الثانية. ما أعرف ليش ما راحت للبحر، بس أكو عروس هنا ذيك هي موجودة وجايبة وياها المصورة مالتها على مود تتصور ويا الطيارات. الطيارات اللي هنا كلش كبيرة، استخدموها كقاصفة بالحرب العالمية الثانية. هذه الطيارة واحدة من الطيارات اللي شاركت من بين آلاف الطيارات اللي شاركوا بالحرب العالمية الثانية. هنا هاي الطيارات الصغار هم استخدموها لحماية هاي الطيارة الكبيرة اللي هي القاصفة. هنا مثل ما تشوفون المدافع الرشاش من كل جهة من الطيارة، لأنه كانت طيارات العدو أو طيارات الألمان تضرب هيش طيارات كبيرة وأسرع من عدها. هنا هاي الباب اللي تنفتح من عدها الجو اللي أتمنى تبين من هنا. هاي الباب الجو اللي استخدموها كانوا يشمرون منها القنابل. وهاي طيارة ثانية متوسطة الحجم، همين إذا تشوفون هنا عليها علام. هاي كل مرة تروح تضرب العدو يخلوا لها ختم، تقنيات كلش عالية. احنا بدنا نحكي بحرب العالمية الثانية. بالحرب العالمية الثانية كانت المعدات والتكنولوجيا مو مثل هسه، بس كان عندهم بارجات تحمل الطيارات، كان عندهم كل شيء التسليح. وهاي الطيارة مثل ما تشوفون هناك بالتلفزيون شلون كانت تطير. طيارة كلش ضخمة بمعدات كلش هواية. وهاي احنا بدنا نحكي سنة 1944. هذه هنا المعدات اللي كان يستخدمها الطيار، المسدس والنشار.
It was only my third mission. I was green. I didn't know what war was like until I went to Berlin.
On March 6, 1944, American air crews in the 8th Air Force learned that they are going to Berlin, the most dangerous target in the Third Reich.
We hit everything in Germany that was worth hitting, except Berlin. We knew, everybody knew darn well, that Berlin would happen sooner or later.
The 8th will send a massive force, 730 bombers and 801 escort fighters. A 15-mile-long parade of American aircraft will thunder across the heart of Berlin for 30 minutes. At the briefing that morning, crews are told they will meet fierce resistance and face the most powerful air defense system in the world. Nearly 1,000 German fighter planes along the flight path from the English Channel to Berlin. Once over the city, 745 German anti-aircraft guns will be aimed directly at the American formation. But the 8th will attack these defenses with the most formidable armada of bombers and fighter planes. The greatest air battle to date is about to begin. The 8th Air Force bombers take off from England under sparkling blue skies and form up over the North Sea. As the bomber train approaches the German border, a 45-mile-per-hour crosswind pushes the 1st Air Division off course. The 3rd Air Division, including the lead 100th Bomb Group, stays the course.
Navigator and pilot, flying at crosswind. I can't see the end of the 1st Division anymore. Roger that, remain on course.
A 20-mile gap opens between the two divisions. Without fighter support, the 3rd Division is now dangerously exposed to German fighters.
Anyone seen our escorts lately? No sign of them. Where the hell are they? Lieutenant, on your toes, boys. Fan it to 12 o'clock knots.
German fighters approaching at 200 yards per second slam into the 3rd Division. Wave after wave of them, 50 abreast, they attack head on. The 100th Bomb Group gets the worst of it. Minutes later, the sky is filled with acrid black smoke and mangled bombers in death spins. Airmen leap from the doomed planes, some without parachutes. Within minutes, 15 B-17s from the 100th Bomb Group are lost. As the remaining bombers reach the city, enemy anti-aircraft guns unleash a barrage of flak. It's the thickest blanket of flak the bomber crews have ever seen. Battling the piercing cold, it's 30 degrees below zero inside the bombers. Many crewmen are bathed in fright sweat. Patchy cloud cover obscures their target, a ball bearing plant. Through holes in the clouds, they attack. When the bombers clear the flak field, the German fighters renew their attack.
Here comes the fire again. Bravo, high! Little Fred coming in 10 o'clock.
American P-51 Mustang fighters reach the formation and tear into the German Me-109s in one of the greatest dogfights of World War II. It's like hand-to-hand combat, with opposing fighter pilots flying so close they can see each other's eyes. The Mustangs give the Americans the edge as they slaughter the Luftwaffe fighters. The surviving and battered B-17 bombers turn and head back to England.
سيارة الجيب اللي استخدموها بالحرب العالمية الثانية، والسيارات البرمائية اللي استخدموها لنقل الجنود والمعدات. هذه الحجم الحقيقي للطيارة اللي موجودة فوق هاي.
We proved to them that, hey, if you can do it, we
can do it.
In the winter of 1944, American and British allies finally pierced the Gothic line. But still, the fighting drags on. Altogether, the Italian campaign will be a grueling 20-month war of attrition, costing the Allies over 300,000 casualties, and the Germans over 400,000. Despite this overwhelming sacrifice, the Allies' road to Berlin will not pass through Italy. That fight is taking place elsewhere.
We hit Salerno. God Almighty, that's when things started. All hell broke loose.
On September 9, 1943, supported by naval artillery, the Americans and British launched an amphibious assault on the shores of Salerno, Italy. But the men are untested.
Daunting tasks: cripple the German war economy and destroy the German Luftwaffe, the world's most powerful air force. The Allies must win air supremacy over Northern Europe, or the great invasion plan for spring 1944 will fail. The aid must help make the Atlantic safe for critical supply ships. The Americans are to assist Britain's war.
معدات النجاة للطيارين.
The U.S. officially enters the war as the arsenal of democracy begins to churn out millions of tons of equipment and materiel. The mariners step up their efforts to deliver goods to American and Allied troops. The merchant seamen are volunteers, boys as young as 16 to men in their 70s, spending years at sea, performing work monotonous and grueling, and all too often, deadly. The enemy knows that the merchant marine is the Allies' lifeblood in Europe, causing the Germans to send out their U-boats with a vengeance. These silent killers prowl just below the surface, stalking mariners even in their home waters, along the Atlantic coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. In 1942, nearly 500 American merchant ships are sunk or severely damaged in the Atlantic. Finally, in early 1943, the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic dramatically turns in favor of the Allies. New technologies make detecting submarines easier. And as destroyer escorts and escort carriers begin to hunt down U-boats, the Allies turn from prey into predator. In May 1943 alone, the Allies destroyed 40 German U-boats, forcing the enemy to retreat from the North Atlantic. Over the coming year, with sea lanes open and factories operating at full throttle, the merchant seamen intensified their work in preparation for D-Day in Normandy.
D-Day.
They transport nearly 500,000 troops and 16 million tons of cargo to support the largest amphibious invasion in history. Over in the Pacific, the transport of supplies and troops is far more logistically complex, with bases scattered across thousands of miles of ocean. Many islands lack ports or even basic infrastructure. Though the logistics are more challenging, few Japanese ships and submarines actively hunt the merchant mariners, making their work much safer. That is, until 1944 and the introduction of the kamikaze pilot. Japanese suicide planes slam into merchant marine ships at a frightening rate.
Taken it here and expanded it over here. That's home front.
To take the battle to the aggressors. The fate of civilization depends upon America and her allies.